Hey, how's it going? So today we're going to play some games with Banette EX. Now, item lock has always been really strong in the TCG, and Banette is probably one of the better item lock Pokemon right now. It's a 250 hit points, stage 1 psychic type that for one psychic does 30 damage, and your opponent can't play any item cards during their next turn. And for psychic, colorless, it has the attack Poltergeist that does 60 damage for each trainer card in your opponent's hand, which that is kind of random because you don't really know how many trainers are in your opponent's hand, but when you're item locking them and stuff, you can kind of assume that at a certain point they're going to have a good amount of trainers in their hand, and you're really only going to use that to take out big threats or finish the game off. And Banette also has a pretty good Shuppet that it evolves from that has 60 HP unfortunately, but it does have an attack for one psychic that does 10 damage. Flip a coin. If we get heads, our opponent can't play any items next turn, so that's pretty alright. There's also a single prize Banette that has the puppet offering ability that we can put it into the lost zone and grab a supporter out of our discard pile, so that can be very nice. We're going to be using the Kirlia Gardevoir engine. Kirlia, of course, has refinement. We can discard a card from our hand, draw 2 cards. Gardevoir has the ability that we can accelerate psychic energies out of our discard pile, and we put 2 damage counters on our Pokemon each time we attach a psychic to it from the discard. So that might not seem good, but it actually is a positive with the Munkidori that we now play in this deck. That has the ability that if it has a dark energy, we can move 3 damage counters from one of our Pokemon to one of our opponent's Pokemon. So that's really solid. That's a way that we can do extra damage. At a certain point in the game, we can every turn accelerate energy to our Banette and retreat it, and then accelerate energy to the new Banette and then move all the damage counters over. So instead of 30 damage, we're doing 60 or 90 damage. So the Munkidori's definitely add a lot to this deck. We have Spiritomb. I don't know how necessary this is, but a lot of the people that play Banette a lot, I've noticed, have the Spiritomb in the deck, so I kept it in there. It's good against Lugia. It can be good against Charizard and Dragapult if you get it down. Well, Dragapult, you probably don't want to put it down, but Charizard to stop him from using Rotom and stuff. We have Mew EX that can be decent for a little extra draw. It can also knock out random things, like we can knock out Raging Bolts with it, and Giratinas if that card is ever good again. And we have the Alakazam so that we can trap things into the active spot and move all of our damage to bench Pokemon. The Alakazam is very good in this deck for trapping things. We have the Calamitous Wasteland Stadium to help with trapping it. It makes our opponent's basic non-fighting Pokemon have an extra retreat cost. Also, we have Unfair Stamp in this deck, which is another new, very good addition to it to set our opponent to a low hand and then make it so they can't play items. Often they won't be able to really do much. And the rest of the deck is just trying to get set up and make sure that we're item locking as efficiently as possible, like 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Trekking Shoes, 4 Poffin, 3 Nest Ball. Very consistent engine. We also have to play 4 Luminous Energy now to use the Munkidori, but it's worth it. We still have 5 Psychic that we can use with the Gardevoir EX, but that's the deck, and let's get into the games. Alright, so this first game, our opponent chose to go first. It looks like we are up against a Gardevoir deck. I suppose it could also be another Banette deck, but that's less likely. The deck's definitely not as popular right now. They get down a Klefki, probably because they saw our Mew EX in the active, but I don't really know how many cards we were going to draw with Klefki anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Don't have the best starting hand. I'm forced to discard our Munkidori because I just needed to try to draw into like a Poffin or something, but that doesn't end up working out. We at least get down like the bare minimum, and we are up against a deck that we get a little bit of extra time, so that's kind of nice. They attach an energy to their Klefki and Iono us. That is definitely a good thing for us to see. It looks like not next turn, but the turn after we would have gotten into a supporter, I think, is the order we drew those cards. They weren't going to brick forever, I guess. But this hand is much better. I can evolve, get down another Shuppet, Trekking Shoes, and Iono. Hopefully get into a Banette. I do get the Nest Ball. Hopefully I play it first and shuffle my deck because there was a Banette put to the bottom, so I definitely want to shuffle that and try and draw into it. I choose to keep the Unfair Stamp just because that's going to be pretty crucial later. This is kind of a hard matchup. Guardy can usually get around not being able to play items just by the fact that it can draw so many cards. And at least get the Ultra Ball off of the refinement, which is good. I'm just debating here what to Ultra Ball away, or the game is frozen. Yeah, I think I'm like trying to figure out if I want to Poffin for another Ralts and save the Kirlia, but I do just end up getting rid of the Poffin and the Kirlia. This deck does, like, you get through this deck really quickly. That's one of the weirder parts of the deck, is you're only doing 30 damage, and with the Kirlias and Trekking Shoes, you end up with a really small deck really quickly. So that's definitely something to watch out for. Saving Super Rod, I notice, is pretty important, and Ionos to make sure that you don't actually just deck out and lose the game. My opponent is off to a pretty good start here. They have all their Kirlias out and a Gardevoir EX. But they don't have like the best attacker down right now, which is good. Gardevoir EX is a very good attacker in this matchup, so they can just use that. And this is kind of why this matchup can get really hard. They're going to just start swinging with their EX, and that's going to put us in kind of an awkward spot. But we'll try and figure it out. This is probably one of the harder matchups for this deck. Now, this is kind of a hard decision. They do have 9 cards in their hand. I could go for the Poltergeist this turn. I don't know. It's really nice to item lock them and try and just get them to brick at some point, especially with the Unfair Stamp, because they are going to be able to draw quite a few cards off of their Kirlias anyway. But here I'm just going to pop in for another Shuppet. I probably don't want to get down the Ralts because I really want to get down a Munkidori to start doing a little bit of extra damage. I have to trade away the Iono because I kind of need the other cards in my hand. I can get rid of the Psychic now. I also need to kind of hope that they cannot find a Dark Energy to keep moving the 30 damage off that I do to them with my Banette with their Munkidori. That is probably one of the hardest parts about this matchup, is that they can just undo all the damage that you do every turn with their Munkidori, and yeah, and then you're doing nothing, so it makes it a lot harder, obviously. But I do just boss up their Kirlia. I'm kind of hoping that they, like I said, they can't find that Dark Energy, and then maybe next turn I can find my own Munkidori and knock out the Kirlia off of the bench after they retreat it, because they would put it to at least 50 damage to retreat it, because they would accelerate 1 and attach. But they do find that Darkness Energy, so that kind of sucks for me. They Turo the benched Guardy though, which is a little interesting. Now they're going to have to put a lot of damage onto their active. I guess that they were just worried about putting too much damage onto that Kirlia and moving it to the bench. But now they have 60 damage on this EX. I hopefully can find my Munkidori, move 30 to it, and then next turn I can knock it out with my own Gardevoir EX, and they're going to knock me out, of course, but then I would be able to Iono them to 2. Here I'm just thinking about playing that research and trying to decide if I even want to bother with the counter catcher, and I don't end up playing it because they're just going to do the same thing they did last turn, and right now I have to kind of focus on getting this Gardevoir EX out of the game and set up to Iono them. I am just going to Ultra Ball here, probably grab another Banette, that I just have one for next turn, and I still have a Shuppet open for the Puppet offering Banette, maybe to get an Iono if they don't draw out of this hand. We're kind of just hoping they don't draw out of it. But now I have the perfect amount of damage on them to knock them out with Guardy. It will give them a turn of items, but it will kind of start to set up the only real win condition that we have. They do trade away an Iono there, it looked like. That's kind of weird. I guess they were going to play Arven anyway. But you'd think you'd want to keep the draw supporters around. They grab Vessel and TM Evo. I don't know if they were... Maybe they're thinking next turn they won't be item locked, or it won't matter because if I keep item locking them, they'll probably just win the game at a certain point. They are setting up to knock out my Shuppet off the bench. I do not plan to let that happen. That would make the game for them really easy. They could just boss and knock out my Shuppet. I do trade away the Ultra Ball here. I don't know how I feel about that. I could have just not done that and Ultra Balled for the Puppet Offering Shuppet and gotten the Iono out of the discard, which would have left me with another Iono later to reset my deck if I need to. But this is perfect math to knock out this EX. So now they're down to 2 cards in hand. They can only draw 4 more cards. Yeah, only, that's not really an only kind of thing, but you know, it's all we got. They have no EX. If they can't find an EX, then we're in a pretty good spot. And if I can get down another Munkidori with, I just need to find Super Rod, we can start doing like a lot of damage each turn. 90 item lock is really strong. But they do put a Cresselia on their bench. They're probably just planning on thinning out their deck. I almost conceded there because I was at my friend's house and he's like, oh, we gotta go to the store. And I was like, I'm kind of getting bodied right now, it seems like. Because I just assumed that they were going to find the EX. But I don't know. As soon as they start using that Munkidori, I'm like, wait, maybe they didn't find the EX. So I'll play this out. Because I think they might have needed to find the Super Rod first there because they had both of their EXs in the discard pile. But they do just retreat to Klefki and pass. This gives us a really good chance to win this game. Because I can move 60 damage to the Kirlia on the bench and knock out their active Kirlia, and then they have 1 turn to find either another Kirlia or Gardevoir EX, or else they just can't attack me anymore. They could do 60 Confuse with the Munkidori with a Psychic Energy attachment from hand, but other than that, they can't win the game, I don't think. So if they don't get it this turn, they basically lose. They send up their Ralts for some reason. Because they don't want to send up the Klefki because then they can't use their Munkidori. But I think they should have just sent up the Cresselia probably. There's no way sending up Ralts is ever what they actually wanted to do. They're going to move the 30 back to my Shuppet and they're just going to pass over. So I think we basically got this game locked up, especially since they left that Ralts in the active spot. I don't know why they would ever do that. Now I just do the thing where like you retreat the energy off and re-accelerate it so you have the full 60 damage to move, and they just end up conceding because they know that I'm going to move the damage over to the Kirlia, knock it out, and then knock out their active Ralts, and they're just going to be forced to pass into me again, and I will be able to take my last prize card. That was, I don't know, that was a really good game. I always like those games where you're like down and out and you just kind of find a way to come back. Yeah, Iono and Unfair Stamp are really good cards, I guess, but on to the next game. So we see a Munkidori in the active. This really could be anything at this point. People are putting it in almost every deck, and they get a comfy, so it is some kind of Lost Box deck. I don't know how I really feel about the Munkidoris and the Lost Boxes. I guess it's for Dragapult, right? And maybe the mirror, but that just seems so niche, and you can definitely beat Dragapult without it, with how just clunky the deck seems to be. So I Iono them. I get a pretty bad hand. I can't do much with this unless they knock me out. So I retreat to see if I flip heads on my Shuppet, and I do. That is pretty lucky. That's going to stop them from doing almost anything this turn. They can hard retreat to a comfy, which for some reason they attach and don't retreat. We kind of get bailed out with a Kirlia top deck. I can trade a little bit. I get just 2 Psychic Energies, and I'll just probably attach one to a Shuppet just because why not? If I flip heads, they can't Greninja me, and if they Greninja me, like, I'm just kind of in a terrible spot already. And I have another Psychic in my hand already. They Artisan for another comfy, which is kind of funny. They're just filling their bench up. They should know that they're going to get item locked at some point. I guess they're thinning their deck out. You might as well grab it, but I would have grabbed a Cramorant at some point if I were them. Just because like you're not going to be playing like a ton of switch cards. when you are item locked, and you have to assume that I'm gonna find a way to get a Banette EX soon, which I do. And Ultra Ball, those are really the only two options out of the hand. And Evolve and kind of set, I guess I'm not gonna Iono them. I think I probably should. Yeah. Alright, I was gonna say, I probably should Iono them. Like, they played a Colress, they probably have another Colress in their hand. And I really need to get my Pokemon evolved. Well, no, I don't, because I'm item locking them. Duh, they can't Greninja. I'm just debating here what to trade, and I don't trade the Alakazam. I don't know why. For some reason, I was like thinking, oh, I need Alakazam because that's how I move damage over, but Munkidori is what moves damage from your side of the field, not Alakazam. So I really just should have traded that away, but I don't know. I had a little mini brain fart, but it happens. That can also be good in this matchup sometimes, but in this situation, the way that it is right now, they're going to keep moving the damage back over to me. What I really need is to get a Turo to put down a Munkidori, and so I can move the 30 that I'm doing, that they're moving to me, back over to them. The Munkidori really both like helps this deck and hurts this deck a lot. It's very frustrating to just do 30 damage and have your opponent move it back over to you every turn. They do attach the rescue board because it is a tool now. I guess it's been like that for a while, but I don't know, it always kind of throws me off because tools used to be items and you could not play tools if you were item locked. Those were some crazy prizes. 5 Pokemon is kind of crazy. But I'm just going to trade here. I probably would like to evolve to a Gardevoir EX when I can. My deck is already pretty thin. That would be nice, but I'm just going to hit for 30. They are going to move it back, but I should have Iono'd that turn. I need to find a Turo next turn, or else they're just going to run through my whole board with Cramorant. This is one of the better matchups, but you need to kind of get your board set up right before it becomes good, because Cramorant can definitely be a real problem. Like, they're just basically 2-shotting you with the Munkidori now, whereas before they were 3-shotting you, so you could, like, if you hit them first, you would knock them out before they knock you out, and then you're item locking the whole time, so they can't usually get it back. But in most matchups, you kind of have to like sacrifice a Banette just to get to a better spot anyway. And I have to retreat here before I play down this Calamitous Wasteland, because I will not be able to retreat if I do that. I had one game where I somehow messed that up twice. It was kind of incredible, like incredibly stupid. I'll evolve to Banette here and just keep item locking him. Oh no, I got a Munkidori. I gotta move the damage over with Munkidori first, definitely. That is very important. I would also like to find a Turo to pick up my Mew EX to establish another Munkidori. We should be able to get that and a Gardevoir EX next turn, so that we can move at least 40 damage, probably like 50 or 60 damage each turn, with accelerating and retreating with the double Munkidori, and that against a Lost Box deck makes for very good math, because you can knock out basically anything except that Munkidori. You can one-shot, which one-shotting stuff and item locking at the same time is kind of insane. But I just trade here. I want to draw into the Munkidori. I don't really want to have to Ultra Ball a bunch of cards out of my hand away, but I can if I really need to. I get the Banette EX, so that's kind of nice. And get rid of the Trekking Shoes and the Mew for another Munkidori. And now is when this deck really gets strong and a lot better than it ever was before. Or you really see what the Munkidori adds. Just heal 60 damage and then do 90 with item lock. Like, a 1 energy attachment item lock for 90 would be probably one of the craziest decks if it existed just on the card. But we can make it happen with like a 6-card combo of, you know, the 2 monkeys and the 2 darks and Banette. Now, I don't really know what my opponent can do at this point. I don't think that they're close to 10 in the loss zone. They can't get to 10 until next turn. But I'm going to knock that Sableye out, and presumably that is going to be the only Sableye that they have access to without using a super rob. So yeah, they basically have lost at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. I guess they could do some boss stall plays, but I can retreat any of these Pokemon fairly easily. And now I will have basically healed my Banette down to almost 0 damage on it, and I'm not leaving any damage in play for them to move over with Munkidori, which is pretty crucial. It kind of makes it useless. Like I could knock it out or just do this and make it so they can't do anything with it. Now they have no good attackers. At some point they will be able to knock me out with Radiant Charizard, but unless they find a way to bump this Calamitous Wasteland, they're going to have to set up for that play over the course of a couple turns. And I am probably just going to boss their Comfy with the rescue board and knock it out. Yeah, so they just can't retreat at all. So that's kind of cool. And this math kind of works out perfectly for putting 2 energy on each Banette to retreat, and moving 40 over is like perfect math to one-shot Comfies. And that's definitely something that this deck was missing before, was in even the Lost Box matchups, like 70 HP is really low and you couldn't one-shot those Pokemon. I was just checking to make sure it wasn't evolution Pokemon too, but it is only basics. And this is kind of the loop that I was noticing that you want to play for at a certain point in your games. It's just the retreat Munkidori loop. It's very strong. You notice we only have 3 cards in deck, which is actually the perfect number of cards to end up winning the game. And they do just concede. They kind of see that I'm basically going to win in 3 turns, and even if they send up the Munkidori for the last prize, I'll just retreat and knock it out with my Gardevoir. But that is Banette EX. I think this deck is really cool. I don't know if it's in the best spot in the meta right now. Like Raging Bolt's probably a really hard matchup, because at a certain point they don't need the most amount of items. Maybe the item lock affects them more than I'm originally thinking about. But Charizard is always a very bad matchup for Banette as well, because if you can't item lock them with your Shuppet and they ever get to rare Candy a Zard, it will just run through your whole board. And even if you do item lock them before they can use Candy, they can usually just force Seal Stone for their Charmeleon, and if you don't knock it out that turn, they can evolve it. And the only way you can usually knock them out is by breaking item lock. So it's kind of like a catch-22. Maybe with the Banette or with the Munkidoris now, you can do the 90 damage in 1 turn, but that is a lot to ask for if they find the Charmeleon early. If it takes them a while to find it, yeah, you probably are in a really good spot. But really at the end of the day, this all comes down to either going first or flipping heads on a Shuppet coin flip, which I don't really like relying on that. But PAL and Lost Box are very good matchups. Guardy can definitely be bad. Like if my Guardy opponent just evolved to 2 Guardy X's at any point in that game, I basically would have lost on the spot, or at the very least I would not be item locking them, and that would kind of ruin the strength of the deck. And then at that point they are just playing a better Guardy deck that can one-shot me with Drifloon or whatever they're playing. But Shuppet, definitely try it out, and like, comment, and subscribe, or whatever they say, and have a good one.